Are you all excited for the day? Good, very good. You can hear me in the back, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. How you doing?
Good, how you doing?
Doing as well as possible. How you doing?
Yeah.
Okay, we good to get started? Y'all excited? Y'all ready?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I hear that. As you can tell, I sent out some panic emails earlier today because when I was prepping this course, I was told this would be a course of 30 students. As you can see, this is a lot more than 30 students. So therefore, as we'll talk about a little bit later, there are certain planning things I'll have to adjust in the next 2 days. So hopefully today will go well. Hopefully today will be a good class. Okay. And hopefully there's not too many random beeps because we're trying Zoom for the first time. There's all these other things hooked up for the first time. So if you see me just lecturing and then suddenly I stop and I freak out about something, it's probably because I found out this isn't working. So hang in there with me. This is going to be an interesting semester, but I'm glad you are here with me. I'm glad we'll experience it together. So, all right, so let's go ahead and get started. Y'all can hear me in the back, right? Okay, good. Okay, so you are in MBA 501, Analysis Using Information Systems. So that roughly translates to Introduction to Statistics for MBA students. In this course, we're going to just cover the basics of statistics because a lot of what we're going to learn in this course is going to carry with you throughout your entire time in the MBA program. So the point of this course is to give you a solid foundation for what you're going to carry with you for the rest of your career at the Mitchell College of Business's MBA program. Okay, so what are we doing today? So today we are going to just do an intro of myself, and we'll talk about how you're going to do your intro. We're going to cover chapter 1. I'm really hoping we cover all of chapter 1 today. And also we're going to start on chapter 2, very quick intro to chapter 2. But most of what we're going to do in chapter 2 today is to give you all your first assignment, to give you all your first task you have to do for this semester. All right, but first, like I said, some of the stuff for this course is still up in the air. My goal, I really hope, is that by Wednesday, I'll have 100% a firm plan of how our semester is going to look. As I mentioned, it wasn't until today I found out the class this size was double what it normally was supposed to be. That also means that we'll have to figure out if we continue doing in-person classes, how we're going to choose who doesn't get to show up that day. Because this class can only hold 52 students, and as of right now, there are I think 58, 59 of y'all in the class. So once again, things I have to deal with. It's not your fault. You don't have to worry about it. But I really hope that by Wednesday, I'll figure something out. Also, side note, how many of y'all have checked your email already? Okay, good. Most everybody. I had a student last semester who was about 7 weeks into the semester said, oh, you keep on saying you tell us things, but you never tell us anything. What are you talking about? And I was like, oh, it's through your email. Have you checked your email? And the student never checked their email, didn't know they had an email. So if you have any issues logging into your email, please let me know. That's something I want to try to fix right away. So therefore, you can figure it out for the rest of the semester. But it seems like most everyone here has your email figured out. So make sure you check that regularly, especially this semester. With everything so up in the air, with things changing so much, it's going to be hard to tell what's going to change this semester. So check your email because you might get an email on hopefully no later than something like a Thursday saying that Monday's class is going to be online. So make sure you check your email so you don't show up to an empty classroom. Okay, regardless of what we end up doing, my intent is to make this class as easy as possible to take fully online. So if you're worried about showing up in person, if you are concerned about your physical well-being, that is okay. It is okay to be worried about your physical well-being. It's okay not to show up in person. So therefore, I want to make this class as easy as possible to take fully online. As I've said in an email, I might need to resend it because I think like half of y'all joined the class after I sent that email. On Canvas, there's already lecture videos from when I taught this class before. So everything in this class is already available to you. All the lecture videos are already available to you. If you want to power through this class, if you want to do a speed run and watch every lecture video in 24 hours and be done with it, feel free to, go for it. Stream yourself on Twitch, make money, whatever you want to do. Okay. Also, I'll try to live stream via Zoom as many lectures as possible, so hopefully it's working. If anyone's in the chat and you see a little chat going off where they say it's not working, let me know.
Looks like you're muted.
I think the participant is muted.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't look at the name.
Yeah. Hopefully we're not muted. That's a good point. Let me check that real quick. Yes, we are good, and it seems like it's picking up our audio. So if you ever don't want to show up to class, if I am teaching, I'm going to try my best to get this to work. Hopefully that works. Hopefully I can have that function properly. So I'll try to live stream via Zoom as many lectures as possible. Also, whenever I Zoom, I tell it to record. So I'm going to record the lectures. I'm going to upload them to Canvas. So if there's ever a time that you're not able to attend in person, then hopefully you can log into Canvas and watch the video later. And also, I'm going to notify the class when homework assignments are uploaded. As I think I said in the email earlier, I had homework assignments designed. Those homework assignments are largely paper-based. When my class goes from 30 to 60 students, I have to throw out all those papers. I cannot grade 60 student papers. So therefore, I'm going to have to make new homework assignments, and I'll let you know through email when those are available. Also, your group paper is already available. We'll talk about that later. You do have a group paper in this course. I will grade that. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then also I communicate anything via email, any updates. So if you don't show up in person, you're not going to miss anything. You'll still figure out everything through email, through lecture videos, whatever you need. So are there any questions about that so far? Any questions about any online course content, online accessibility? Okay, so let's continue. Okay. Also, I'm required this semester to provide the opportunity to have 3 in-person classes. You may or may not attend these, it's up to you. I just need to provide the opportunity for y'all. So therefore, this does count as one of them. So we'll have at least 2 more in-person classes. That's all the requirement is for the university. So once again, since I have to change everything with this class, I'll let y'all know in the next, hopefully 2 days, how many of these classes will be in person. And I will probably give you the opportunity to give me your feedback about that. I'll probably make a survey, send it to y'all, and y'all can tell me, do you really want classes in person? Do you want none of them in person? What do y'all want? Because I want to make this enjoyable for y'all. And then also, however, Wednesday's class, so 2 days from today, that class will be via Zoom. Because at some point this semester, we're going to have to do some Zoom-only classes. That's just how it's going to be. Some of them will have to be Zoom-only. And I want to make sure as soon as possible, if there's any issues with that, we figure those out early. I want to make sure, if half the class can't use Zoom, I want to know that on day 2 rather than day 10. So put that in your notes, put that in your calendar. Wednesday's class, so 2 days from today, that's going to be on Zoom. That is going to be on Zoom. Okay. Also, this is other stuff I'm required to say. It's your responsibility to keep your classmates safe. So you must follow the university's mask wearing guidelines. I'm glad to see everyone wearing a mask. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for not making it really awkward for me. Make sure it stays above your nose, etc., etc. Also, make sure you follow the social distancing guidelines. Thank you all for spreading out. I appreciate that. Once again, making it easy for me. And then also contact tracing guidelines. If you test positive, you have to let the university know. If you have a roommate test positive, I believe you also need to let the university know. And you also have to follow the quarantine guidelines. If you're told by the university you have to quarantine and you're not allowed to show up to class, please do not show up to class. I think I'm probably allowed to say this, but we've already had one undergraduate who was supposed to be quarantined show up to class today. That sucks. Don't do that. That's why that's so stupid. So if you're supposed to be quarantined, actually quarantine. Okay. So any questions about those policies? Going once. Going twice. All right. Okay. Also, I sent this through email. Maybe I need to resend it. If you didn't get it, just let me know. But usually I start this class by everyone going around and doing an introduction. I didn't know how comfortable y'all would be talking with masks on. I didn't want to put anyone in an awkward situation. So therefore, this week, please record a short introduction of yourself. You can do it with your cell phone. You can do it in selfie mode. And upload that to the discussion page on Canvas. There is already a discussion page that says, please upload your introductions about yourself here. And I sent an email of things you should cover. It's really basic, of things like your name, where you went to school previously, where you work at, something interesting about yourself. So do that sometime this week. There's already been about 4 or 5 students who have already done that, and they've done a fantastic job. So if you're unsure what to do, just watch your classmates' videos. They did a great job. So good job if you're one of those 4 or 5 people. Give yourself a pat on the back. Okay, so now a little bit about me, just an introduction about me. So I'm a professor in the Marketing and Quantitative Methods Department. This is my 5th year at the University of South Alabama. I am on the quantitative methods side, hence why I'm teaching a statistics course. I know nothing about marketing. I know nothing whatsoever about marketing. So even though I'm in the marketing department, do not ask me any questions about marketing. I all the time am assigned students, undergraduates to advise that are in marketing. They always come up to me and say, hey, Dr. Howard, like, how do I get into digital marketing? I want to make that my career. And I have to say every time, I have no idea. I have no idea how to get into digital marketing because I'm a stats guy. I'm a stats nerd. I'm not a marketing person. I was mainly hired at South Alabama because right before I got here, they started a PhD program. They really needed someone who was a PhD level researcher who could teach PhD level classes, and that's why they hired me. So my main responsibilities is teaching the PhD program, but since I'm here, they also have me teaching the MBA. So it's a good setup for me. Okay. Also, I've taught undergraduate and graduate level statistics in both psychology and business. I have taught in the psychology department before, not here, but elsewhere. And I've also taught leadership and other classes in organizational behavior because I also do management research. I am a management researcher. But for being honest, I'm more of a psychology researcher, but my stuff is often on the workplace, so therefore business people like me. Okay, a little bit more about me is I did my undergrad at Virginia Tech. Anyone here ever been to Blacksburg, Virginia? Oh, we have one person. That's like an all-time high. So we have one person who's been to Blacksburg, so good job for you. And I did my graduate studies at Penn State. I got my PhD in industrial organizational psychology. Has anyone ever heard of that? Okay, we have one person, so that's also an all-time high, so y'all two are my favorite students now. So I got my PhD in industrial organizational psychology because in my undergrad, I got an undergrad degree in psychology. I knew I really liked studying people. I really like understanding people. When people do something stupid, I'm like, why'd you do something stupid? When I do something stupid, I'm like, I'm such a piece of shit. So that fascinates me. That's so interesting. I took my first undergraduate class in therapy, hated it, hated therapy. I could not stand, listening to a professor and they say, oh, you tell your client X, Y, or Z, and then they do the opposite. That would drive me crazy. So I was fortunate that I found out about psychology, which is the application of psychological principles to the workplace. It was the best of both worlds for me. I could understand psychology, understand people, but also apply it for useful situations. At Penn State, those are my two advisors. The person on the left is Jim Farr. The person on the right is Rick Jacobs. If you ever go to an IO psychology conference and tell them your advisors were Jim Farr and Rick Jacobs, they get really excited. They're like, oh man, tell me about Jim Farr. Like, what was he like? How did he teach? Any other room, no one cares. So don't expect you to care about it. All right, other things about me. Like I said, I mainly was hired due to my research. Most of my research has a foundation in statistics and methodology. I do a lot of boring papers, or a lot of papers a lot of people find boring, that are inventing new statistics, testing statistics, seeing if they work properly. So I do a lot of research on that. But I also study things like personality. So how do we measure personality? What is the structure of personality? Can personality be defined by 5 dimensions, 6 dimensions, maybe 8? Some people say personality has over 1,000 dimensions. Once again, fascinating. I'm really interested in that. I also study health and well-being. So how does the workplace affect your health and well-being? And then lastly, I study computer-based training and development. The thing I'm most well known for in that is using headsets. So using virtual reality headsets to train people. Doesn't work, does it not work? Most of my research shows it's not near as effective as people claim it is. People, when they put on the headset, actually just want to play around with it. So if you tell someone, hey, put on this headset and learn how to weld something, the first thing they're going to do is take their hand and try to weld it in virtual reality. Every time, every single time. So most of the time, this virtual reality headset stuff doesn't really work out that well. And I've been able to successfully do research showing why that might be. So that's about me. That's just there for your reference in case you want to look at the PowerPoint of research I've done on statistics. Okay, also I've done consulting work. So these are some of the companies I've consulted with. And this is stuff I assume that y'all are much more interested in, is actually how to use statistics in the business world and how to do consulting with statistics. So for a lot of these companies, they've approached me with saying, hey, we have this problem. We have a data set. We think this data set can somehow get at that problem. We have no idea how to figure that out. So I've done consulting work where someone else has already collected the data and said, tell me what to do based on this data. But then I've also done consulting work where they've said, hey, we don't know what the issue is. We don't know what the deal is with this. You have to come in, collect the data, analyze the data, and then also write up a report telling us what to do about it. So I've done both types of statistics consulting. And I'm going to talk about that all throughout the semester, so be ready for that. Okay. Also, what about a fun fact? Since I'm making you all say a fun fact about your introductory videos. First off, I have 2 cats and a dog. So the dog is Porter, the cats are Autumn and Maya. As you can tell, the dog is much more scared of the cats than the cats are of the dog. Just how it works out. And second fun fact is my wife is Dr. Laura Verana. She is in the English department. If you ever see her on campus, say hello. If you ever see her, call her Dr. Verana. For the love of God, don't call her Mrs. Howard. She's not pleased when people do that. So call her Dr. Verana. She has a PhD. She got it before we got married. So her name is Dr. Verana, not Mrs. Howard. Okay, so any questions about any of that before we cover the syllabus? Okay, so let's cover the nuts and bolts of the syllabus because I'm required to do that. Okay, the syllabus should now be on Canvas. So I uploaded one version of it. After I found out the class size doubled, I had to take it down, change some things. But the syllabus is on Canvas again. Okay. The syllabus includes the course description. You can read that yourself, but the overall summary is the purpose of this class is to not only teach you analyses, not only teach you how to click the correct buttons in Excel, how to click the correct buttons on whatever stats program we're going to use, but also how to interpret your results, and then more importantly, how to apply those results to make informed business decisions. Because it's one thing to say, oh, I ran a correlation, I got a result of 0.3. It's a whole other thing to say, I ran a correlation, I got a result of 0.3, so therefore we need to lay off half of our workforce. So one large portion of this class is deciding, well, how do I make those decisions? How do I go from these abstract numbers to actually making informed business decisions? So we are going to talk about that a lot this semester. Okay. There's also course objectives. Those, once again, are on the syllabus. It pretty much says the same thing. So apply statistical methods, identify the right technique, find and analyze data sets, and then analyze large data sets and interpret results. Particularly that third bullet point, find and identify data sets. For your group paper, the group paper is going to be completely up to you. It's going to be completely open-ended, where you have to find a data set, you have to do your own analysis, you have to find your own results, and you have to be able to write it up and short impress me with it. You have to be able to say, hey, we did this analysis, we found this result, and it's important because of X, Y, and Z. So that's going to be a really important part of your paper, is to argue what you actually did is important, rather than just plugging in numbers and running with it. Okay, there's also contact info on the syllabus. That is my email. You can also contact me through Canvas. I will try my best to respond within 24 hours during the week, within 48 hours on the weekend. That is my office number. I am never going to be in the office. So do not come to my office. I will not be there. Okay. Also required materials. So first off, required is you need access to Canvas. That goes without saying. So you need access to Canvas. You also need Microsoft Excel. So if you do not have Microsoft Excel, that might make the course a little bit more difficult. Every year, I usually have one student who tries to get away with something like OpenOffice. That might work. You're going to have a little bit of difficulties with that. So if you're really, really, really strapped for money, you can sometimes force something like OpenOffice to work. But this class is much easier if you have Excel. Also, we're going to be using the stats program Jamovi. So Jamovi is an open source free clone of SPSS. So normally when I teach this class in person, we use SPSS. Our computer labs are not big enough to hold a fourth of this class, and I'm not separating this into 4 different sections. So instead, we're going to use Jamovi. It's free, it's open source, it's pretty much a clone of SPSS. So you will learn everything we would normally learn in person by using Jamovi. In fact, it's probably going to be more helpful because I always have students say, SPSS is so useful, but my company refuses to pay for it. So therefore, we'll learn Jamovi. It's free, so you can use it for the rest of your life if you wanted to. Also, the optional things for this class is the textbook. So our textbook is Business Statistics, Communicating with Numbers. That is entirely optional, 100% optional. The only reason why I really have it up there is because if you take a test or complete a homework assignment and you think, hey, Dr. Howard marked this wrong, I think he's wrong, I think this should be marked right, you can then use that textbook. And if you can point to anything in that textbook that I marked wrong on your paper, I'll mark it right. So that textbook I recommend is kind of just like the default. If you want to call me out on something, that textbook is there for you to call me out with. Otherwise, we are not going to use that textbook. We are not going to use it at all. Also, as a quick note, do not get the Essentials of Business Statistics. That is the same textbook, but it has the second half of it cut out. I think the normal textbook has chapters like 1 through 20. The Essentials only has chapters 1 through 10. I think they're almost the same price, so do not buy the Essentials if you choose to buy the textbook. And then lastly, there is SPSS, there's R. You can use any stats program you want in this class. Statistics is statistics. If you don't want to use Jamovi, fine, don't use Jamovi. But that's what I'll be teaching with. If you have a different stats program you're really passionate about, feel free to use it. I don't really care. So use whatever stats program you want. Okay, classroom policies. Late work, all assignments are due on time. The syllabus says I do not accept late work. That's kind of just to protect me. There might be some chances I will accept late work. If you have something major happen, of course, I'm going to be forgiving. Every semester I have a student who does something like gets into a car wreck on the way to class and they can't turn something in. Of course, I'll be forgiven. Of course, I'll take it late. But on paper, I say no late work, just to, I guess, protect myself. So long story short, if you forget to turn something in, just let me know. Just turn it in late, and I'll probably be forgiving about it. Also, if you ever need to miss a class or arrive late, turn in an assignment late, please let me know. Just tell me. Every semester, I'll have a student who, once again, will do something like get into a car crash and then think, oh, Dr. Howard, you want to accept that as an excused absence. And of course I will. Of course I will. Also, as a side note, there is no attendance in this class. So once again, you don't have to show up to classes. So even if you do show up late, even if you do miss a class, I don't really care because attendance is not required. All right, so this is the revised how the course is going to work with grades. So this is different than the first syllabus uploaded. So if you look at the first syllabus, this is now different. The new syllabus uploaded, this is on that one. So first off, 1 4th year grade will be homework assignments. I envision that there's going to be 5 homework assignments throughout the semester. So each of those homework assignments will be 5% of your grade. So you'll have 5 homework assignments. You will have a group project, which is pretty much just a group paper. So you will have a group paper to do. You then will have a midterm exam and a final exam. So those are going to be the only 4 categories you'll have this semester that will influence your grade. So 5 homework assignments, 1 group paper, a midterm, and a final. So, any questions with any of that so far? Any questions about anything I've said, discussed? Any questions at all?
Are the finals are going to be the in class?
That is a good question. The finals, and the midterm and the final will probably not be in class. The final definitely will not be in class. The final I can administer online. Typically the midterm is in class, but I think I'm going to change it this year. So I'm going to try my best to make those not be in class. So, yes.
Do you use soccer? Do you?
No, that's a good question. Give me 48 hours to think about that. So the question was, do I use Proctor U? I use it for undergrad. I've never used it for MBA. So I'm thinking about it. Yeah, it's a good question. Any other questions?
All the homework assignments, they're going to be, they were going to be there. Even the last homework assignment is going to be available for us like right now? Or no?
That's a good question. So the homework is not available yet. So before the homework was available, and then when class size doubled, I had to take all those assignments down. I'm going to try to make the homework available as soon as possible, hopefully within the next week. My goal is the next week. So my goal is for all the homework for the entire semester to be available next week. So, good question. Any other questions? Any other questions at all? Also, I'm holding my mask because it keeps on slipping down. So that's why I'm doing this thing. Okay. Of course, standard grading, A, B, C, D, F. What I just now said previously, all homework assignments were short papers. With this class size, I'm not doing that. So instead, we're going to do Canvas quizzes for all the homework. I'll try to have those uploaded in the next week. I'm assuming they're probably going to be multiple choice. I know MBA level, I really hate giving multiple choice stuff for MBA students. Y'all are beyond multiple choice. But with the class this size, I feel like I kind of have to do that. So your homework assignments probably will be multiple choice. Maybe fill in the blank, maybe like number stuff. So I might give you a data set, tell you to run the analysis, and you just have to type in what the result is, what the number is. I'll probably do something like that, but also some fill in the blank. Okay. Also, if you do get the textbook comes with a thing called Connect. Connect has Connect assignments. None of those are required. Connect assignments are not required for this course. They might be helpful for practice. There's some students who are obsessed with Connect. There's some students who do the entire course or the entire Connect course in addition to what we do in class. That's up to you if you do that. That's completely up to you. But that will not be required. You're not required to do the Connect assignments. Okay. And then for the group paper, pretty much what I already said. What the group paper assignment will be is it's completely open-ended. How you doing? It's completely open-ended. It will be up to you to find a data set. It will be up to you to analyze that data set. It will be up to you to write up the results, the method, the background section, the discussion section. So pretty much you just write a paper from scratch about a data set that you have found, an analysis that you did, and the interpretations that you made. So the group paper is completely open-ended. I really love this paper. This is like my favorite paper to grade in the world because typically MBA students find such interesting things to study, such interesting things to analyze. I think this was last year, 2 years ago, I had a student who had a data set of college women's golf and how their matches paired up. Is it a golf match? Is that what you call it in golf? Yeah. How golf matches paired up, and showed that a lot of the elite schools never play against any of the worst schools or any of the lower ranked schools. So the elite schools could go like 2-20 and still make it to like the postseason. Sorry, I really don't know what they do in golf, but make it to the postseason. So pretty much he showed statistically, if you're an elite school and you always schedule against elite schools, you could be terrible, you could be awful, and you would still make it to the postseason. But if you're somewhere like South Alabama that couldn't get in those games, couldn't get in those matches, you would have to go like a perfect season to even approach the postseason. So really fascinating. He showed that with statistics. He sent that to like the head of the women's golf NCAA, et cetera, et cetera. And they read it. They said, yeah, you're completely right. So he's trying to get that changed. So every semester, every year, there's someone who does something like that, where they write a paper that's really neat, that's really interesting, and they actually send it on to somewhere else that's actually gets some type of results. They get something really interesting. So I encourage you to strive for that in this class. I encourage you to think of papers like that that can produce something meaningful beyond just the boundaries of this class. Okay. Also, like I said, there'll be 2 exams, a midterm and a final. They're going to cover statistical and data analyses. They're standard. They're probably going to be part open-ended response. The first one will have a lot of open-ended response questions. The second exam is going to be fully analyses. The second exam, I will give you a bunch of data sets and say run a correlation, run a t-test, run an ANOVA, et cetera, and by then you should know what all those mean, and you should be able to run those analyses. Makeup exams are given at my discretion. If you missed an exam, you have to let me know in advance. Just make it easy on me. So just try to think, if you know you're going to miss an exam, let me know as far in advance as possible, and I'll try to work with you. Okay. Also, changes to the course. I can change anything about the course whenever I want to. That's all I have to say about that. So check your emails, because if I do change anything about the course, I will let you know. I will let you know ASAP if anything changes. Okay. This is also required stuff, I have to say. We will discuss ethics, social responsibility, and sustainability. Those are important. We will talk about those. Also, if you have disability and academic conduct information that you need, it is on the syllabus. If you have some type of disability you need assistance with, please, please, please let me know. I am more than happy to work with you. I will do whatever needs to be done if you have some type of disability. But I can't do anything if I don't know about it. So if you have any type of disability you need accommodations for, please let me know. And then also there is an academic disruption policy. In my now 5 years at South Alabama, I've only ever had one class I had to ask a student not to show up anymore. Please don't do that in this class. Please be respectful of your peers. That student would often say very sarcastic and mean remarks to other students and made students feel uncomfortable. So don't be that person. Be nice to your classmates. Okay. Once again, the syllabus has the entire schedule in it. So that's the entire schedule. I don't think there's anything particularly I need to note. Are there any questions about the schedule? Anything you see about the schedule that looks different, weird, odd? Anything that needs to be noted? Yes.
I guess since we're not meeting in person, at what point are you going to assign our groups so that we know who's in our group?
Very good question. So for your group paper, you're going to make your own groups. You make your own groups for your group paper. I have a discussion board on Canvas. So if you need to find a group, you can post on the Canvas discussion board, or you can start after class today or during the break today, trying to find your groups or trying to make groups. So did that answer your question?
It did, thank you.
Orange shirt?
How many per group?
About five per group. It could be one or two more, it could be one or two less. In prior semesters, I have allowed people to write a paper by themselves. I really don't want to do that this semester with this many students. So please, please, please try to find a group. Try to find groups of about 5. So, was that your question? Okay, good. Any other questions? Okay. So yeah, so that's the schedule. As you see the group paper, it's available to you now. I think the instructions are maybe I have to activate them on Canvas, which I'll do after class. So if you want to look at what the paper is, I will activate that after class today. Your first homework is due August 30th. As previously, you would have a homework assignment due next Sunday, so within like 6 days, but I had to take that off the schedule because I still have to make the homework assignments. So your first homework assignment will be August 30th or due August 30th, and then it's pretty much every week after that. Okay. Course structure. In general, the first half of this course covers the basics and theory of statistics, and then it's not until the second half we actually start doing the analyses. So first half theory, second half is actually doing the analyses, and that should say Excel and Jamovi. Not SPSS, that should be Excel and Jamovi. Okay. Other sources, I do have a website, mattchoward.com. On my personal website, I have statistics help pages. This usually comes from where in prior semesters students have said, oh, I listened to your correlation lecture, I still really don't get it. Can you do something to help me with that? And then I just make a page on my website and throw it up there. So if there's ever anything in the course you're confused about, check out mattchoward.com. I have statistics guides up there that most students find helpful. In fact, there's now other universities that are using my website to help teach their classes. Kind of weird, they don't tell me about that. And then I'll just randomly see that in somewhere in Ohio, there's been 100 people who logged on to view my website. Kind of funny, but so yeah, so look at that. Yeah, that's all I have to say. Okay, so once again, any questions, any comments? Okay. So we are going to start chapter 1. Let's go ahead and take a 5-minute break. Are y'all cool with that? 5-minute break, 10-minute break, what would y'all prefer? 5 or 10 minutes? Raise your hand for 5. Raise your hand for 10. All right, let's take a 5-minute break. 5-minute break, and we'll meet back at 6:40.
haven't seen her in a year and a half, so. But wow. What's your name? Nicole, nice to meet you. I'm Zay. How's it going? Pretty good. Glad you finally made it. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Your MBA. What were you immediately prior? Oh, I'm sure it's not. So I worked in sales for a little while. I did capital equipment sales right out of college. I hated it. It was awful. It's basically a part of a box. It was a shipping container that had a part inside of it. Really cool technology. I wish they would actually have it working before they hired me as a salesperson. That way I wasn't trying to sell hair. That's kind of where my annoyance came from with the job. Hearing that, so I went to South for undergrad and worked with the Melton Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation. I served on the board, did the advisory board last year when I was at that job. Was quite miserable at work, but I was doing a project called the Build Bridge program, and it's where we taught business principles and how to do a pitch and things like that to high school students. And I found that I was enjoying that a lot more than I was enjoying actual work. So I realized that I can go to ending up in academia, so I don't have a business degree, so I decided to MBA, then they want to PhD. So eventually we'll come back here. Hopefully you're gonna get through all this. I'm a little worried about my other class, but we'll see how it goes. The forecasting one, the 535. You did the healthcare one, I'm sure.
I just figured.
Well, there, see, I'm usually right now, I'm busier with work.
Okay, on the South Alabama side. Okay, nice. So, I can pass out. It's free. That's right. What's your name? Scott. Gotcha. Thank you. Yeah. Sorry, say it again.
I guess it'll be off because like the school's closed that day.
Oh, interesting. What's it closed for?
Labor Day.
Okay, gotcha.
Student and
Can we send an email about that? Thank you. Thank you for letting me know. Okay, we good to start? We ready? All right, perfect. All right, so during the break, Scott, where's Scott? There he is, Scott, told me that apparently South Alabama provides Excel for free to all students. Okay, good. So if you don't know about that, Google search South Alabama Excel or contact Scott. He will help you with that and figure out how you can get Excel for free. So thank you for letting me know. All right, so let's go ahead and start chapter 1. The goal today is to get through all of chapter 1 and to very initially start chapter 2. So let's get going. All right, so a good place to start talking about statistics is to answer the question, what is statistics? So let's test your knowledge. Let's see what y'all know. Can anyone tell me what is statistics? What is statistics?
Recording and analyzing data.
All right, so importing and analyzing data, that's a good place to start. So in statistics involve importing data and analyzing the data. So a good place to start. Any other additions? Anything else anyone wants to say? Importing and analyzing data. Anything else we do in statistics? Who said that? Yep, so make conclusions, yeah. So we import data, we analyze data, we make conclusions based on our results. So interesting. Anything else we do when we do statistics? So import, analyze, make conclusions. Anything else we do? Going once, going twice. All right, let's see what I have up here. So statistics, one definition for it is extracting useful information from data. So that kind of goes along with what we said initially. So statistics does involve analyses. You cannot talk about statistics without talking about analyses. So it's extracting useful information from data. And I want to emphasize that useful part. A big part of statistics, we can calculate any statistic we want to. We can get any data set we want. We can run any analyses we want to on it. But a big part of statistics is identifying, well, what's useful? What do we need to know from this data? If I have a data set, should I calculate the mean? Should I calculate the median? Should I calculate the mode? Should I run a t-test? Should I do a regression? Which one of those will be useful? And that's a big part of statistics, is knowing what is useful information. Also, another definition is analyzing numerical data. So pretty much what we said, so good job on that. We have a chat. What's the chat say? Thank you, Colton. Who's Colton? Is Colton on Zoom? Interesting. All right, so there, if you log into Zoom and go to the chat, there is a link to download Office 365 for free. So thank you, Colton. Colton not in this class. All right, so thank you, Colton, on the Zoom. Okay. All right, so also statistics is making inferences about a population from a representative sample. And that's a very textbook definition. That's okay if that means gibberish to you right now. Hopefully within about 2 or 3 weeks, that will make sense to you. But statistics could be defined as making inferences about a population from a representative sample. And then the last one, I think, one more. Yeah. So to many, statistics is a concept that you cannot be fully described until you understand statistics yourself. So it's not until you learn how to analyze your data. It's not until you learn how to interpret your data. Sometimes it's not even sometimes it's not even until you learn how to collect your data before you really understand what statistics is. So if you're hazy on exactly what is statistics, that's okay. As long as you can answer this question for the midterm, let's put it that way. All right, so why do we need statistics? So all you are in this class because you're part of the MBA program. The MBA program makes us a required class for a reason. Why do we need statistics? Why do we need it?
To help make decisions.
Oh yeah, who said that? Was that you? Yep, so to help make decisions. How can statistics help us make decisions? You want to expand on that?
Well, the data that's provided, you can make educated choices about business decisions in the future.
Completely correct, yep. So it can help us make educated decisions. So whenever we're running a business, whenever we're part of a business, we often have to make decisions. We have to decide things. We could make those decisions just based on intuition, just based on our thoughts, but it's often preferred to make our decisions based on our data, to make our decisions based on numerical results. For instance, one of my PhD students, he works at a hospital. He is involved with purchasing medical equipment. He has to decide which heart valve to purchase. Do you get the cheaper one that goes out with it, loses its functionality quicker, or do you buy the more expensive one? So he has to use data to make that decision. He has to use data to decide, well, do we pay more for the artificial heart valve that will last 50 years, or do we pay less for the one that lasts 30 years? He could make that decision on intuition, but are you ever going to want to have a doctor who decides what heart valve to use based on intuition? Obviously not. You want one that uses data. All right, so why else do we need statistics? Any other reasons we need statistics?
Understand the data.
Say that again?
Understand the data.
Yeah, so to understand the data, do you want to expand on that or? Okay, I'll take it from here. But yeah, to understand the data. Because whenever you're in a workplace, you're going to get data. Whenever you own a business, whenever you're on site somewhere, you're going to get data. So if you want to do good, and if you want to be good at your job, you need to learn how to analyze and interpret that data. If you own a business and you're seeing that X amount of products are selling, X amount of products aren't selling, if you don't know how to do basic statistics, to do cost-benefit analyses and things like that, then you're useless. You're not going to run your business well. So statistics can help us analyze our data that we have. And is there any other reason why we need statistics? Any other reason? Yep.
To cover your own butt.
Okay.
Because eventually we'll make a mistake and you need to justify why you chose that.
100% correct. 100% correct. Because in that example I used where you could, use intuition about the heart valve, if you make the wrong decision based on intuition, you're going to get fired. You're going to get fired so quick. But if you make the wrong decision, but it was based on data, and you can say, oh, I have the data to support what I did. Here's my thought process. Here's my logic. The data said that I should have been correct, but I was still wrong. You have a better chance of keeping your job. So statistics can cover your butt. So good job on that one. Anything else? Any other suggestions?
To adjust and make improvements by finding the weak spots in your system and processes.
Yeah, so that's a good one. Yeah, so you can use statistics to identify weaknesses in your company, to identify weaknesses in your industry. And you can use statistics to see, oh, this is weak, this needs improvement. And then you can continuously do that to always make your company better. Really good, really good. So any other ones? Any other ones anyone wants to contribute? Okay. So the ones that I have listed is to draw meaningful inferences from observations. That's pretty much where we started from, to draw meaningful inferences from observations, to make informed decisions, to confirm our beliefs. So often in business, we might have a belief about something. We might think something is true. We might have an intuition about something. But if you go to your boss, especially for a lot of y'all, you're younger, if you go to your more senior, your more tenured boss and say, I have an intuition about something, can we do it? What's your boss going to say? More than likely, no. You're not experienced enough. You don't know what you're talking about. But if you can provide the data that confirm your beliefs, you can better make your argument. You can better make your point. So sometimes we need statistics to confirm our beliefs. Often more importantly, we need it to reject our beliefs. Sometimes we have that intuition. Sometimes we have that strong feeling. We need to collect that data. We need to support our feeling. And then we get the exact opposite result. That happens all the time in my research. As a researcher, I make models. I think of research designs. I think I'm so confident that I know exactly how the world works. And then I find the exact opposite every single time. And that's still important. That's still important to know that you need to reject your beliefs. Also, to further science, if any of y'all ever want to get your PhD, you're going to need to know statistics. If you ever want to do scientific research, you're going to need to know statistics. I know some of y'all already do scientific research, so hopefully this class will help you with that. And then also to keep us from believing stupid things. There are many, many, many stupid things out there people believe. Very few of them are supported with data. Some stupid things are supported by data. We'll talk about that later in the semester. But sometimes you need statistics. Sometimes you need data to keep you from believing stupid things. So always important. Okay. So for example, how can statistics help us with the following examples? Okay, so this is one example. So a newspaper headline reads, after a record amount of snow, the newspaper headline reads, what global warming? And this is irrelevant to how you feel about global warming. How can statistics help us answer that question? How can it help us address that thought? So how can, after having a record amount of snow, can it help us figure out what global warming is? Global warming true? Is it not? Does having snow influence that? What do y'all think?
Just a one-time event.
Yeah, expand on that.
Unless you have enough data to make that statement, how can you say it's a record amount? I mean, how can you say that's like a change in the climate, not just an anomaly?
Exactly correct. That with statistics and understanding data, we can understand that sometimes, you have a marker that doesn't draw. Sometimes, there we go. You might have something like, let's say, time and then temperature. Sometimes you might have a single observation where over time, you might have one low temperature. Once you understand statistics, once you understand data, you understand that often that one observation isn't that important, isn't that meaningful. You need to have more than just one observation. Because it might be something like overall, global warming is happening. If you're drawing the average, it would look like that. It's just sometimes you still get these low occurrences. So understanding that sometimes we need to have many observations to understand a trend rather than just having one observation to support whatever you want to believe. So with statistics, with understanding data, we can help answer that type of research question. What about this one? This one's probability. So this one, a gambler predicts the next roll of the dice will be a 7 because the last 3 rolls were not a 7. How can statistics help us understand this? Is this person correct? Are they incorrect? Are they right? Are they wrong? What do y'all think?
Well, the odds are the same every time.
So expand on that. Yep. So the odds are the same every time. Why?
It's 1 out of 6, I think is the probability.
Exactly.
Getting a number, so statistics would show that it didn't matter what he rolled before.
Exactly correct. These are independent events. So understanding probability, we know that rolling a dice is an independent event. But it doesn't matter what you rolled 3 times before, that's not going to influence what you roll the 4th time. So understanding ideas behind probability, understanding things like independent events can help you understand, well, should I put a lot of money on this 4th dice roll, or should I be smart about it? Okay, the very last one is researchers at UPenn, and this is a real study that happened. Researchers at UPenn found that infants that sleep with a nightlight are much more likely to develop nearsightedness. So if you're a baby and you had a nightlight, you're much more likely to develop nearsightedness. What could be an alternative explanation here? So they're saying nightlight, they're saying they are saying night light leads to nearsightedness. They're saying night light leads to nearsightedness. What's an alternative explanation here? Is there anything else you can think of that might be the cause of this? Sorry, say it again.
Could be 1,000 factors.
So it could be 1,000 factors. It could be 1,000 factors. It could be tons of things that influence nearsightedness. You're right. It could be.
Genetic.
Expand. Mhm.
If you're the parent and you are nearsighted, then your child might have the genes to be nearsighted.
Okay. So it could be if your parent nearsighted leads to child nearsighted. But what about that nightlight thing? What about that nightlight thing?
Well, if the parent is nearsighted, they probably need the light on, so that's why you would have it, and then the child is gonna be nearsighted, not because of the light, but because of the parent.
Exactly, 100% correct. And that's exactly what happened. Is there is this big UPenn study that came out and said, oh, night lights lead to nearsightedness. We need to take away all those night lights. You're damaging your infant's eyes. If you're a parent and you have a night light, you hate your baby. But then there was more research that came out that said, no, we account for parent nearsightedness and see how that predicts child nearsightedness and also predicts whether they use a night light. That explained all of the variance. That explained all of the variance in that relationship. So once you accounted, for instance, in this model, parent nearsightedness, this relationship disappeared entirely. That relationship entirely disappeared. And that's the type of stuff we'll also talk about in this class. Is how do we need to design our studies? How do we need to design our research models? How do we need to think about our relationships to really understand what's going on? Because we can design a million studies like this and get results that are completely bogus. So how do we need to think about things like this to make sure we're looking at the right thing? How do we need to think about these third variables to make sure we're predicting the right thing? Okay. Also, another important thing about statistics is statistics can keep us from believing in what I call statistical bullshit. If you're ever in business, if you've ever listened to a consultant, you have probably seen statistical bullshit. Y'all probably sat through a work meeting where someone's trying to sell you something and they're flipping through their PowerPoint really quickly and you see pictures that look like, if you buy our services, we guarantee your revenue will go up like that. And they go through it really quickly and you think, wait, that graph looks way too perfect. I don't know what they were trying to say there. Why'd they go through that so quickly? And that's another thing we're going to talk about in this class is statistical bullshit. It's how to catch people when they do things like that. How to identify when is someone trying to trick you with statistics? When is someone trying to sell you something phony with statistics? And this is one of my favorite quotes. Mark Twain, there are three kinds of lies: lies, vandalize, and statistics. And we'll talk about that in this class. Is how can you lie with statistics, and how can you catch liars with statistics? And I do have the website statisticalbullshit.com we'll look at in this semester. I haven't updated it in a really long time, but it does have some good examples that we'll discuss in this class. Okay, so one other thing we should talk about when it comes to statistics is even if you're in industry, even if you're in practice, often we use the scientific process when we're applying statistics. Often we're using the scientific process to answer some type of question. So what is the beginning of the scientific process? Where does the scientific process start?
Observation.
Say it louder.
Observation.
So observation, I think I have one thing before that. I think that's number 2. There you go, hypothesis. So number 1 is hypothesis. You create a hypothesis. You create some type of educated guess about something. So in this case, your hypothesis could have been night lights lead to nearsightedness. It certainly could have been. You could have had the hypothesis night lights lead to nearsightedness. We later find out that wasn't supported, but it could still be a hypothesis. It could still be a hypothesis. Number 2, I think it was already stated. Yeah, collect data, get observations. So first we make a hypothesis, then we get observations, then we collect data. So your data might be numerical data. That's what we're mainly going to talk about this semester is numerical data. What's the third step? What do we do then? Say it again, but louder.
Analyze.
Yep, analyze it. So we create hypotheses, we collect data, we analyze our data. And that will be the primary focus of this course is analyzing data, since this is overview of statistics. So we will talk about that a lot. All right, so we have our hypothesis, we collected our data, we analyzed our data. What's number 4? think everyone said pretty much the right thing, is report our results. So interpret our results. So we had our hypothesis, we collected our data, we ran our analyses, and then we report our results. We see whether our analyses supported our hypothesis or did it support something different. So did our analyses support our hypotheses or did it support something different? So when you're reporting your results, you're not just saying the correlation was 0.3, you're also interpreting that. You're also interpreting that. And then I think I have one more. What's the very last part? What's the very last part of the scientific process? So someone say it again.
Or start over again.
There you go. Look at you go. Yes, repeat. So good job. Is we are never done with the scientific process. We are never, ever done with the scientific process. So whenever you think you're done, you can always start over. You can always repeat. And you can always get better data, different data. So the scientific process is never over. All right, so those are the 5 parts of the scientific process. So keep that in mind as we go through the semester. Because every question we're going to come across, every analysis we could run, we're going to go through all 5 parts of the scientific process. We might go through it really quickly. Some of these parts might seem like they're blended, but they are always there. We're always going to start with a hypothesis. We're always going to then collect data. We're always then going to analyze our data. We're always going to report our results and interpret our data. And then theoretically repeat, but not so much in this class. Okay, so let's use this as an example. If we wanted to apply the scientific process to investigate this question, and we wanted to go through all 5 steps. So the question being, companies often believe in the happy, productive worker hypothesis after seeing their employees working effectively while in a good mood. So there's this really popular hypothesis that if you're in a good mood, you're going to work better. So if we wanted to use the scientific process to study this, what would that look like? Where would we start? Based on what we just talked about.
Hypothesis.
Okay, so we create our hypothesis. So what might our hypothesis be in this situation?
Workers, people who work properly.
Yep, so it might be happiness leads to productivity. That could be our hypothesis. Is our hypothesis is happiness leads to productivity. Simple hypothesis, we can test that. So if we wanted to then proceed with the scientific method, we have our hypothesis. What would be the next step?
Create an environment, so a positive environment and a negative environment.
Okay, so we would collect our data. So one way we could do that is to create 2 different environments. We could create a happy environment where we say all the employees over here, you get a bonus, you get a raise, you get free candy, you're going to be happy. We could say all the employees over here, we're going to take your class size from 30 to 60. I'm just kidding.
I'll tell you from the day before.
Exactly, and not tell me until the day before. So we could do that. So these people over here, they're happy. These people over here, they're not happy. So then what would we do? If we wanted to then test this hypothesis, what would we do after that?
Create measures of productivity.
Sorry, say it again?
Create measures of productivity.
Exactly correct. We would create measures of productivity. We would create measures of productivity. We can go back to some of the origins of business research, the Hawthorne studies. So we can look at garment workers, see how quickly they were making their garments. So if y'all are happy, how many garments did y'all make? If y'all are unhappy, how many garments did y'all make? And it might be the average person over here makes 100 an hour. The average person over here makes 10 an hour. So if that was our results, would our hypothesis be supported or not supported? Would y'all guess? So happy people 100 an hour, unhappy people 10 an hour? Yeah, it would probably be supported. That's a very large difference. So therefore, we made a hypothesis. We then made a study to collect data. We then therefore made a measure of performance, which was how many garments you made in an hour if you're the Hawthorne studies. So that was kind of our analysis right there. That was kind of our analysis, is we collected the data and then took the mean of this group, compared it to the mean of this group. So that was our analysis. So then what's the last step? What's the very last step? Okay, what's the 4th step then? Sorry. Report it. Report the results. So what would be a 1-sentence report of this result? Yep, so happiness results in productivity. But if this was the actual results, if this group did better than that group, we would say happiness results in productivity. And that's simple as that, simple as that. And then the last step being a repeat. What we actually found in research is this relationship is not as near as strong as you would think. The relationship between happiness and productivity is not near as strong as you would think. We're not going to talk about that too much this semester, but there's a lot of justifications for that. One of them being is that other emotions can also cause you to work hard. Everyone has had a really mean boss that you've been scared of. Did you work really hard for that boss? Some people said no. Some people are going to say yes, because I didn't want to make that person mad. I didn't want that person to come in and fire me. So sometimes the most upset employees are the ones who are going to work harder because they don't want to get fired. There's a lot of other explanations, but that's one of them. Okay. This one's pretty much the same thing, so I'll just go through it quickly. Is after implementing a new safety program, companies will believe the new safety program is superior to the existing. So in this instance, our hypothesis might be safety program leads to, let's just say, accidents. So our hypothesis would be the different safety program predicts accidents. But if you have the new safety program, you're going to have fewer accidents. If you have the old safety program, you're going to have more accidents. So hypothesis being safety program leads to accidents, or the type of safety program you have predicts the number of accidents you will subsequently have. So that's your hypothesis. Then you could collect your data. These people over here use the new safety program. These people over here use the old safety program. We then observe how many accidents they have, and we could analyze that to see, oh, there's actually a significant relationship there. But if you had the new safety program, you had fewer accidents. If you had the old safety program, you had more accidents. So then what would be the interpretation of that result? What would be the one sentence interpretation of that result? You want to say it again? New program. Exactly, that the new program works. The new program is better. If we had two groups where the new program had fewer accidents than the old program, our result would just be the new program works. The new program is better. So, okay. Any questions about that? Any questions about the scientific process, hypotheses, collecting data, analyzing data? Okay, so let's continue then. Okay, so where do we start to learn more about statistics? One good place is talking about the difference between descriptive statistics and inferential statistics. Descriptive statistics versus inferential statistics. This is usually where most classes start when they talk about the difference among the different types of statistics. So can anyone tell me what descriptive statistics do? What do descriptive statistics do? Yep, exactly correct. Descriptive statistics describe. Descriptive statistics describe. So the point of descriptive statistics is just to describe the data that you obtain, just to describe the general shape of the data. So what's some examples of descriptive statistics? Any guesses?
Heart rate.
Not quite. Good guess. That's a type. That's more of a data itself. Not quite. Good guess. So that's another type of data. So what would be, sorry, say it again?
Average.
There you go. Average would be one, so mean. So a mean would be a descriptive statistic. Anyone have any other guesses of other descriptive statistics?
Variance.
Yeah, exactly. So mean, variance. So mean, variance, those are the big two. What's some other ones? So mean, someone say it again?
Deviation.
Yep, standard deviation. So mean, variance, standard deviation. Anyone else? Yep. Yep, median. And then what's the last common one? Mode. Yep, I think I heard y'all say it. Mode. So we have mean, median, and mode, variance, and standard deviation. So those are the 5 most common descriptive statistics. Mean, median, and mode, variance, standard deviation, and then also have skew up there. There's also skew. So the purpose of these are to describe your data, to summarize your data. It's to give you a general idea of the shape of your data. So as of right now, I won't expect y'all to really know how to interpret that well, mean, median, mode, standard deviation. But later in the semester, you will get to the point where if I gave you a data set and I said your mean is 10, your standard deviation is 100, you would be able to look at that really quickly and think, oh, there's something wrong there. There's something terrible going on there. So at one point in the semester, you will be able to quickly look at mean, median, and mode, variance, and standard deviation, and really quickly be able to interpret the shape of your data. We will get to that point. Okay, so what's inferential statistics? What are inferential statistics?
For relationships.
Yeah, so say it again, but louder.
We look for relationships.
Exactly correct. So inferential statistics are to infer relationships in your data. So inferential statistics infer relationships in your data. It's used to identify relationships in your data. So inferential statistics infer. What are some examples of inferential statistics?
Ratios.
That's going to be what we're going to cover in 2 slides. So good guess. Come back to that in 2 slides. Someone?
Correlation.
Yep, so correlation. So correlation would be an inferential statistic. There are some textbooks that say correlation is a descriptive statistic. I have seen that in textbooks. When I learned correlation is inferential, so that's what I go with. But just be aware of that. Some textbooks do say correlation is descriptive. So, any other inferential statistics that y'all know?
T-test.
Yep, so t-test, that's a wonderful one, t-test. So we have correlation, t-test. Any other ones?
Nova table.
Sorry, say it again.
Yeah, Nova.
Yep, so an ANOVA, so t-test, ANOVA, correlation. Anyone else want to throw any out there?
Chi-square.
Chi-square, yep, so that's another one, chi-square. So correlation, t-test, ANOVA, chi-square. Any other ones? So this is going to be pretty much everything else. So correlation, we also have regression. Regression is an inferential statistic. We will learn that this semester. So correlation, regression, t-test, ANOVA, chi-square. Also, if you wanted to take more advanced classes, we would have multi-level modeling, structural equation modeling, latent profile analysis. There's so many inferential statistics, I could go on forever. But the main thing I want y'all to know is descriptive statistics describe your data, whereas inferential statistics infer relationships among your data. Inferential statistics infer relationships among your data. Okay. And also for both, whether we're doing descriptive statistics or inferential statistics, we will need to collect a sample. So therefore, that brings up the next thing we should talk about. What is a sample? What is a sample? When we talk in statistics about collecting samples, about having representative samples, what are we talking about when we say sample?
A small subset of the population.
There you go, a small subgroup of the population. Yep. So a sample is a small subgroup of the population. I don't have the text there. So a sample is a small subgroup of the population. So therefore, what is a population? If a sample is a subgroup of the population, what is a population?
Entire set
The entire set of what? It's the entire set of something.
of the data that you can observe possibly.
Of the data that you could possibly observe, that's right. So it's the entire group of the data that you could possibly observe. What's the data we're going to possibly want to observe, though? Okay, so a certain characteristic that defines an individual. Y'all are like so close to what I'm looking for. Anyone else want to contribute, throw some thoughts in there? So a sample is a subset of the population. The population is the entirety of, any guesses?
Data set.
Not the data set, good guess though. Not the hypothesis, good guess though. Ooh, not of the tested group. Once again, a good guess.
Available?
Sorry, say it again.
All of the available.
Not all the available, good guess though. Any other guesses? So what traits would we be interested in? Or what, I kind of gave it away there. Anyone want to, do you want to expand on that?
Just whatever you're focusing your statistics on, whatever trait that statistics focus on.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I was looking for, so good job. So it's the entire group that we're interested in. So a population is the entirety of the group that we're interested in. So a sample is a subset of the population. The population is the entirety of the group that we're interested in. So for me, I do business research. Often my population that I'm interested in is all employees that have ever lived or ever will live. So whenever I do research, I collect a sample of employees, I do analyses, and I get results, and I hope that my results generalize to just general employees. I know that's probably not the case. I have to have some limitations to say this might not apply in different countries, et cetera, but I hope my results generalize to all employees. So therefore, my population is all employees, and my sample is just a subset of employees that I have access to. If you're in education, you might be studying something like middle schoolers. The population that you would be interested in would be middle school students. And therefore, if you were to do a study, you would get a sample of middle school students, because that would be a subset of your population population being all middle school students, and you get a sample of middle school students that you would run analyses on. It could really just be whatever you want it to be, whatever you're interested in. When I was in grad school, I had a friend that was and I guess you would call it human-computer interaction. It was a very particular subset of that, where they were interested in prosthetics, mechanical prosthetics, particularly for legs. And their population they were interested in was people that had their leg amputated, but had it at like the most precise point you could possibly imagine, because they were interested in making prosthetic legs that would attach to certain nerves. So literally their population, whereas someone like me, I'm interested in all employees, so that's like billions of people. They literally were interested in a population that they identified as 16 people. They knew 16 people in the world that had that exact amputation at that exact point of the leg. So whereas my population that I'm interested in is billions, theirs was as small as 16 people. So your population is whatever you're interested in. It could be billions, it could be 16 people. So regardless, your population, the entire group of people you're interested in, your sample is a subset of that population. Your sample is a subset of that population. And the person that I knew that studied the prosthetics, they could get their entire population. Whenever they did a study, they could get all 16 people. So they could sample their entire population. That never happens for hardly anyone else. That's never going to happen for anything that you'll want to do, more than likely. So next question is, why do we use a sample then in research and not a population? So ignoring that person I just now talked about, why do most people use a sample and not the entire population?
Cheaper.
Cheaper, yeah, so that's definitely cheaper.
So it's more focused on that.
Sorry, say it again.
Your focus, I don't know.
Okay. Any other guesses? Yeah, so expand on that.
Well, if you're saying all middle schools, it'd be almost impossible to survey some of the middle schoolers in the world.
Exactly correct, 100% correct. That if we were to try to get our entire population for a study, for most people that's impossible. That would be completely impossible. I do business research. If I wanted to get my entire population and give them a survey, I'd have to give a survey to multiple billions of people. That's just not feasible. That's not possible. So instead, I get a subset of that population. I collect a sample, and I run analyses on that sample with the assumption that will generalize to my population, with the assumption that my subset, that my sample, is representative of my population. Of course, that's not always the case. Sometimes I run my analyses, I get my results, and then I look through my sample and say, oh, I got really unlucky. My sample's really weird. So therefore, I have to collect another sample and hope that one might be representative. So either way, we do not collect a population when we do research. We collect a sample, and that's because the population is often way too big to collect everyone in that population, so we have to rely on the sample. Okay. Also, there's many, many ways we can describe data, and we should cover this. We should start talking about some of the ways we can describe data, because it's going to be important when you're in the you're already in the workforce, so it's going to be important for your day-to-day jobs. So when you're talking to someone about data, when you're talking to someone about analyses, you need to be able to describe your data. You need to be able to communicate effectively about your data. Okay. So the first way to describe your data is qualitative versus quantitative. The first way is qualitative versus quantitative. So what is qualitative data? What is qualitative data?
Data that's not represented by a number.
Okay, yeah, so data that's not represented by a number. So qualitative data is data that's not represented by a number, so therefore it's represented with words. So qualitative data could be an interview with someone. We could call an interview with someone qualitative data. We could call a focus group qualitative data. So qualitative data is just data that's words. So if we were to want to collect data about customer perceptions of a new product, we could bring in a focus group, we could bring in 8 people, we could show them the product, and we could say, what's your opinion about that product? And then they just start talking. That's qualitative data. What they start saying is qualitative data. Often if you're doing qualitative data analysis, you're going to record what they're saying. You're going to record what they're saying. You're then going to probably transcribe what they said, and you're going to look for themes. You're going to look for themes because you need to be able to show someone, oh, these themes came up in their qualitative data. These themes came up in the qualitative data. So therefore, we need to make these decisions based on that. So if you gave someone a new product and all your customers said, oh, it's really weird looking, then that would be an important result. If you have a new product, it's a food, and people said, oh, that looks way too gross to try, that's an important result. You can find that theme in the qualitative data, and that would be important to know. So every now and then I have students who come through this class and think qualitative data is always bad, the qualitative data is always inferior, and that is not the case. That is certainly not the case. There is some of the most impactful research, some of the most impactful findings were found through qualitative data. So never, ever, ever ignore qualitative data. Okay, the other type is quantitative. What is quantitative?
Numbers.
Yep, so numbers. So quantitative data is data with numbers. Quantitative data is data with numbers. So quantitative data is going to be the focus in this class. Quantitative data is going to be the focus in this class. We're pretty much going to not talk about qualitative data at all. We are not going to cover qualitative data whatsoever. Instead, we're going to talk about quantitative data. Instead, we're going to talk about quantitative data. Okay. So with quantitative data, there's also other ways we can further define it. There's other ways we can further define quantitative data. So the first way we can talk about it is call it cross-sectional data. So if we have data and we say it's cross-sectional, what are we referring to? What is cross-sectional data?
Ratio.
Okay, sorry, 2 more slides. Give me 2 more slides. Good guess.
At that time.
Sorry, say it again.
It's usually at that time.
Yeah, it's data that's collected all at the same time. Data that's collected all at the same time. So cross-sectional data is data that's collected all at the same time. This might be if I gave you all teaching evaluation surveys. That would typically be considered cross-sectional. That if I just gave you a survey and the survey had 10 questions on it, those 10 questions would be considered cross-sectional data. That would be considered cross-sectional data because I'm asking you all 10 of those questions at the exact same time. The cross-sectional data is all at the same time. So what is longitudinal data? What is longitudinal data?
Over time.
So it's over time, exactly correct. So longitudinal data is at multiple time points. It might be 2, it might be 3, it might be 20, it might be 100, but in some way, shape, or form, longitudinal data is over multiple time points. So it could be that I'll give you those same 10 questions about teaching evaluation effectiveness or teaching effectiveness, except I give you 1 question every day for 10 days. Or I could give you 1 question every week for 10 weeks. Or I could give you 1 question every year for 10 years. So in some way, shape, or form, the questions are separated across time. So if your data is separated across time, that's longitudinal data. That is longitudinal data. And the last one is a special case of longitudinal data. It is time series data. So what is time series data? What is time series data? Any guesses? And this one, the definition, some textbooks define it differently. I will say that. But this one's, sorry, say it again. Yeah, there you go. So it's data that's collected at a regular interval, and we often think of it as continuously collected data. So data collected at a regular interval, and we often think of it as continuously collected data. So one example of this might be the stock market. We often think of the stock market as time series data. So we can go in there and get a stock price and see that it's updated every 15 minutes, and that's always going to be the case. We can go in and log in, look at that stock price every 15 minutes, record that data, and we can do that indefinitely. So we could consider stock results as time series data. Another example, someone said heart rate earlier. Heart rate could be time series data. I could wear a Fitbit, I could tell it to record my heart rate every minute, and I could wear that Fitbit for a year. I would have time series data of my heart rate every minute continuously for a whole year. So any questions about those 3 types? Any questions about those 3 types of data? Or anything else? Any questions about anything?
The time series data have to be the same interval? Or could it be
Ooh, that's a good question. Does it have to be the same interval? I believe the answer to that is yes. I believe the answer to that is yes. Like I said, I have seen textbooks define it differently, so I'm sure some people would disagree with me, but I think the textbook we use says yes. Good question. Very good question. Any other questions? Any other questions? Okay. Okay. So also another way to define data is by NOIR. So NOIR says there's 4 different types of data. So the first one is N. What does N stand for? Nominal. Yep. So what is O? Ordinal. What is I? And then what is R? What is R?
Ratio.
There you go. Okay. So yes, N. Do I have it? Yeah. So nominal. Oops. So we have nominal. So the first one is nominal. So out of NOIR, we have nominal. And it's also sometimes called categorical. So what is nominal data? What is nominal data? No, that's quantitative. So good guess. But so what is nominal data?
Basically, it's just counting.
Sorry, say it again.
Isn't it just a counted number, it's not like over time or?
Good guess, but not quite what I'm looking for. So both good guesses, not quite what I'm looking for. Okay, could be words. Could be words. Anyone want to expand on that or? Sorry, what's that?
It identifies you like as a person, I don't know how to describe that.
It could identify you as a person.
Like male or female.
Okay, so yeah, so male or female is an example. Male or female is an example. So what's a characteristic of that type of data? So if we say male or female is nominal, how would you describe male or female as data? How would you describe male or female as data? Sorry, say it again. Okay, yeah, so grouping. So if we have some type of grouping, it's also called categorical. So nominal is grouping, it's categorical data. Any other answers to this?
Not affected by other data.
Not affected by other data? It could be. We'll get into that later. So, okay, so to answer more of what I was looking for is nominal data does not have a meaningful order. So that is the characteristic of nominal data. So the characteristic of nominal data is that it does not have a meaningful order. It does not have a meaningful order. So if we have male or female, if we have a data set of male or female, and I told my research assistant, can you sort that from largest to smallest? They're not going to know what I mean. They're not going to know what to do. If I have a data set that's something like race or ethnicity, and I say order that from least to greatest, they're going to have no idea what to do. Because nominal data, so things like gender, race, ethnicity, it does not have a meaningful order. There is no order to that data. All right, the next one is ordinal. The next one is ordinal. So what is ordinal data? How would you define ordinal data? Yeah, so you can put it in order. So that's the first characteristic, is ordinal data you can put in order. So what's another characteristic of it though? So you can put this data in order. You could use it for comparisons. You could use it for comparisons. So it could be in order. Any other guesses about a characteristic of it? So yeah, it could be in order. The order does matter. So it could go from least to greatest. But what's like another characteristic of that order though? Any guesses? You can have, it does have a position. It does have a position. There you go. So the distance among the values are not necessarily the same. The data does have an order, but the distance between the values is not necessarily the same. So, yeah, so nominal is data that does not have a meaningful order. Ordinal, the data can be ordered, but the distance between the values are not equally split. The distance among the values are not equally split. So what's the example people always use when they talk about ordinal data? Any guesses? There's one example everyone ever uses. Someone, I'm hearing some answers. I don't know about the basketball one. I don't think. Any other guesses? Age, no, not age, good guess though. Least likely, okay, that is true. That gets really confusing, but you're completely correct. So I'm looking for an easier example though. Any other guesses?
Satisfaction.
Could be satisfaction, that kind of goes with least likely to most likely. Could be satisfaction. An example I was looking for that every stats class uses is positions in a race. Positions in a race. So you can order that. So you can say someone came in first, second, third, fourth, but it could be the first place person. If we're talking about the 400-meter dash, might have ran it in 50 seconds. This person might have ran it in 51. This person might have ran it in 53, and this person took 2 minutes and 47 seconds. So in that, we could order that. We could order it from quickest to slowest. So 1, 2, 3, 4. However, the distance between these are very different. The distance is very different. Whereas this was a second difference, this is 2 seconds difference, and this is almost 2 minutes difference. This is almost 2 minutes difference, almost 120 seconds different. So if you're thinking about positions in a race, that would be ordinal. If you're thinking about positions in a race, that would be ordinal because you could order that, but the distance between the places are not equal. The distance between the observations are not equal. So, okay. The next one is interval. The next one is interval. So how do we describe interval data? Sorry, say it again.
Like the distance in between each position is usually decided.
Okay, yeah, so it can be ordered. The distance between each of the intervals is the same. So it can be ordered. The distance between each of the intervals is the same. But there's one more thing about this to define it. What's the last thing I'm looking for? It's ordered, the distance is the same. Exactly, there's no meaningful zero. There is no meaningful zero. As for interval, data can be ordered. Distance between the values are equally split, but it does not have a natural or meaningful 0 point. It does not have a natural or meaningful 0 point. So one example of this might be degrees Fahrenheit. One example of these might be degrees Fahrenheit. So we can order the degrees. There's an equal interval between each degree, but 0 in degrees Fahrenheit doesn't really mean anything. 0 degrees Fahrenheit doesn't really have a meaningful association. That it's just kind of there. It's just kind of, it doesn't really mean much. Okay. And the last one is ratio. So what is ratio? How do we define ratio? There you go.
Same as all.
Yep, so it's the same as interval, but it does have a meaningful 0. So ratio, the data can be ordered. The distance between the values are equally split. And it does have a meaningful or natural 0 point. It does have a meaningful or natural 0 point. So an example for ratio would be degrees Kelvin. So an example for ratio would be degrees Kelvin. Because with degrees Kelvin, you can order the degrees. There's equal spacing between each interval of those degrees. And also 0 for Kelvin does have a meaning. 0 for Kelvin does have an association. When you're talking about Kelvin, 0 degrees Kelvin means that there's an absolute absence of movement in the atoms themselves. You cannot get any colder than 0 Kelvin. You cannot get any colder than the absence of movement in atoms. So therefore, 0 Kelvin does have a meaningful 0. 0 in Kelvin does have a meaning. Fahrenheit 0 doesn't have a meaning. 0 in Kelvin does have a meaning. So that makes Kelvin on the ratio scale. So yeah, so Celsius is the tricky one. Because Celsius theoretically has a meaning, it doesn't mean like the absolute 0 of something. So, so 0 Celsius doesn't mean like it can't get any colder, it can't get any lower. So therefore, we tend to think of it more as interval, but that is something you could debate. And if it was on a test, I would probably still mark it right. So, any questions about that, or any other questions about that? Yes.
Does it have to be like an ending point or natural divider of the number sequence you're looking at for the ratio?
Yeah, so typically when you're thinking of ratio, you are thinking of it as like the ending point, that it does have a meaningful 0, that you can't really go beyond that, typically. Any other questions? Any other questions? Comments, critiques? Okay. right, so here are some examples. We've already talked about most of those. The only other one is age. So would age be nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio? What would you say age would be? Yes, it would probably be ratio. Age would probably be ratio. Because if you say that someone is 0 with age, then that means they haven't been born yet. That's a meaningful 0. So age does have a meaningful 0, and then the space between each interval and range, the space between each interval and age does have a meaning. That the distance between 1 and 2 in age is the same as 3 and 4, it's the same as 4 and 5, and so on and so on. Okay. One reason why this is important, and this will come up throughout the semester, do not learn this right now, we will revisit it later. But one reason why it's important to know about nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio is that does determine what statistical analyses you can perform on your data. That does determine what statistical analyses you can perform on your data. Because if you have ratio data, you can do whatever analysis you want. Any analysis you can do on ratio data. But if you have data that's nominal, it's much more limiting. It's much more limiting. Same with ordinal. Ordinal data is much more limiting. Whereas interval and ratio, you can do more analyses with that. One thing we're not going to talk about this semester, but it comes up if you take more advanced stats classes, is we brought up the example of like satisfaction or strongly agree to disagree. Often we like to, some people would say pretend that it's interval. We like to pretend that data is interval because that allows us to do more analyses. However, some people would very strongly argue that those type of answers are ordinal. That things like if you strongly agree to strongly disagree. Some people would say that that's ordinal data, that we're abusing our statistics when we do analyses using that data. But a lot of people say, no, we can just treat it as interval, we can pretend it's interval, and just ignore it. That's way beyond what we're going to cover in this class, but I just wanted y'all to have that knowledge. All right, so other ways we can describe our data is discrete versus continuous. And this is just some of the building blocks we're going to use for the rest of the semester. We'll have almost an entire class talking about discrete versus continuous data / probability. So we're talking about discrete data. So what is discrete data? What is discrete data? Any guesses? Yeah.
Like ones and zeros. I don't know.
So it could be ones or zeros. There are cases it could have more than just 1 or 0, but it could be ones and zeros. Anyone else want to add to that? So that it could be ones or zeros. Anyone want to add to that?
They have just one value.
Sorry, say it again.
They have only one value.
So with both, people could have just one value. So that could be the case of both. Could be. Any other guesses?
Is it like a roll of die?
Okay, so yeah, that is correct. So an example of discrete data would be the roll of a dice. Why would roll of the dice be an example of discrete data?
Because you have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You don't have like 2.5.
Exactly correct. So discrete data, you have a countable number of possible observations. So discrete data, you have a countable number of possible observations. So discrete data, something like rolling a dice, it could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That is a countable number of possible observations. Could be flipping a coin, that kind of goes with 1 and 0. Could be head or tails. So flipping a coin is discrete data. You only have 2 options with that. So on the other side of the coin, what is continuous? What is continuous data? What is continuous data?
Infinite possibilities?
Say it again.
Infinite?
Yeah, so it's typically data that has an infinite number of possibilities. It's a data with an uncountable number of possibilities. So this might be something like height, that even though we could say you're 5'7", you're 5'8", theoretically, you could go infinite on that. You could say you're 5'8" and point ... inches. So you could go to 100 decimal places, but there could be an infinite number of answers for your height. Another example might be weight. You could go infinite number of decimal places for weight. Same with age. You could go infinite number of decimal places with how old you are, et cetera, et cetera. So discrete data, there's a countable number of possible observations, whereas continuous, there's an uncountable number of possible observations. Continuous data has an uncountable number of possible observations. Okay. Any questions with any of that? Any questions with anything we've covered so far? Okay. Yeah, so one thing to think about, and one thing we'll go ahead and cover briefly, is data or observations, whether qualitative or quantitative, that are meant to reflect or describe an unobserved or underlying process or conceptual variable. And usually a data set consists of many observations regarding multiple observed variables. So a data set typically consists of many observations regarding multiple observed variables. So it's going to be very rare that you have a data set that's just something like gender. It's going to be very rare you have a data set that's just something like age. Instead, your data set's typically going to include many observations that represent many different things. One thing to think about is that there is a difference here between conceptual variables versus observed variables. There is a difference between conceptual variables and observed variables. Does anyone want to guess what a conceptual variable is? Does anyone have any guesses what a conceptual variable is?
Theory?
Okay, so you're close. Who said that? Yeah. So close. So theory. So conceptual variable is closely associated with theory. So this might be our conceptual variable up here. So do you want to expand on that at all? Okay. Anyone else want to add to that? Theory, theoretical. Anyone else want to add to that?
Some of them might just be like accepted as a norm instead of something that's concrete, scientific.
Abstract.
Okay, so yeah, so I kind of like both of those put together. So it's more abstract. Typically there are norms around it, but it's something abstract. So something like job satisfaction. Something like job satisfaction. So it's I like to define conceptual variables as the underlying concept that we're interested in. So I like to define conceptual variables as the underlying concept that we're interested in. That there might be a norm of how to define that. There might be a agreed upon way we define job satisfaction, but that's an abstract concept. That is an abstract concept. And there might be theory surrounding it. There might be norms surrounding it, but it is abstract. So let's say I'm a researcher, or let's even say I'm a consultant. I work in industry, and I'm interested in understanding job satisfaction. I need to know how happy are these employees, because I need to know whether they're all about to quit or not. Unfortunately, I'm not able to go to a workplace and say, show me your job satisfaction number. I'm not able to stare at someone and say, oh, they're a 6, they're a 7, they're a 10. You don't have a job satisfaction number over your head. So instead, what do I have to do? How do I get that indicator of job satisfaction? Say it again, but louder.
Interviews.
Yeah, interviews, surveys. In this case, let's say survey. So I'm going to give a survey. I'm going to give a job satisfaction survey. So I'm going to give a job satisfaction survey. And I might give everyone the question, how much do you enjoy your job? Please answer on a scale from 0 to 10. So so you have this conceptual variable, job satisfaction, but that gives us an observed variable. That gives us an observed variable. Is the number that you write down for that question, that is your observed variable. So it's your job satisfaction survey response. It's your job satisfaction survey response in this example that is the observed variable. So the conceptual variable being job satisfaction, the observed variable being your survey response. So one thing we'll talk about more throughout the semester, one thing we'll cover more in the semester, is often we like to assume, and we hope we can assume this, that our observed variables are going to actually match our conceptual variables. Our observed variables are actually going to match our conceptual variables. So whenever we're doing research, whenever we're working in industry, we are working with observed variables. We're performing analyses on observed variables with the assumption that it relates to conceptual variables. We can, throughout the semester, we will talk about data that we can obtain to help support this inference. And we're going to talk about analyses we can run to help support this link, because sometimes we do a really bad job at it. Sometimes we do an awful job at it. One of the most common instances where we do a terrible job at it is if you bring in a business consultant and they're doing some type of personality measure, many of those training personality measures are complete rubbish. They say that this observed variable, your score on our survey, represents your true personality. So often it's complete rubbish. So who here has ever taken the Myers-Briggs? Complete garbage, means nothing, it's complete trash. That is the least valid test you can imagine. Has anyone here ever taken the True Colors test? Raise your hand. So when you took it, were you orange, were you blue? Do you remember?
I can't remember. I can't remember what color it was that we got, but it seemed really just abstract and not really relevant.
Yeah, so for those who haven't taken it, you answer a few questions and then the results say, your personality is blue, you're a blue, or your personality is a green. And then you can buy their little booklets and it'll say like, oh, if you want to be an effective employee, make sure you're always working with the blue. If you want to make sure that you're, going and doing the best you can, make sure an orange is your manager. Once again, complete garbage, complete rubbish. So because they're, and if you look at their data, they do have little data books you can flip through. Their support, their observed variables, so the scores on the True Color surveys, don't actually reflect any conceptual variables they think they're measuring. It doesn't reflect any conceptual variables. And we'll talk about that throughout the semesters. How do we help build this support that our observed variables actually match our conceptual variables? And also another thing to think about is whenever we're doing analyses, we might have job satisfaction scale, we might have a job performance scale. We will run our analyses on the observed variables. We're going to run our analyses on the observed variables with the assumption, and then yeah, job performance, with the assumption that a relationship we see with our observed variables actually reflects the relationship at a conceptual level. So we assume when we run analyses that our relationships we see with our observed variables accurately reflect these relationships at a conceptual level. That's something like your job satisfaction score correlating with your job performance score actually reflects the relationship between job satisfaction and job performance. And once again, we often see that what we think is going on with our observed variables often does not reflect our conceptual variables, especially when it comes to job performance. So, okay. And also on your PowerPoint, I did include a picture of that. So if you need more explanation, go look through the PowerPoint. It's on Sakai, and that might help you out with that. Okay. So things you should be able to answer after this lecture are these questions right here. So I would suggest that sometime before the midterm, go back through and just look at those questions and think, can I answer those questions? Can I accurately answer those questions? Because those are the main takeaways that you should have after this chapter 1 lecture. Okay. Any questions about chapter 1? Any questions whatsoever about chapter 1? Okay. So here is where we're going to leave off at, is we're going to start chapter 2. And I'm just going to tell you what to do and then you're going to leave. Is for chapter 2, we're talking about charts, graphs, and figures. So for chapter 2 is about charts, graphs, and figures. That should not say tomorrow night. That should say, actually that should say tomorrow night. So I'm letting you out of class early so you could hopefully have some time to do this. On Canvas, so first off, you need to have a group of about 5 people. So this is a group activity. This is a team project. So somehow find groups of about 5 people. So this can help you start finding groups for your paper. You do not need to stick with these groups at all. You do not need to stick with these groups throughout the semester. If you want to change groups after tomorrow, you can. But for this, you need to find a group of 5 people. On Canvas, there are data sets. There are 5 data sets. I think they're called something like graph data set 1, graph data set 2, graph data set 3, graph data set 4, and 5. And I want you to download just one of those data sets. You only have to use one of the data sets and just create the graph or figure that best visualizes that data set. So just download one of those data sets as a group and then make the graph or figure that best visualizes that data set. And then when you're done, when you've made your graph or figure, upload the Word document to the discussion board on Canvas. So upload your Word document with your figure on the discussion board on Canvas. So any questions about that? Any questions about that? Okay. I am letting you out early, so you could do it now if you wanted to. If you do it now, make sure you socially distance, or you could do it via Zoom. You are available to do it via Zoom. Also on Canvas, there is a discussion board post open that if you want to go home right now, because you want to socially distance, go home, post on the discussion board and tell people, hey, I'm looking for a group member and then hopefully someone will contact you. If you need help finding a group, contact me, I will help you. Yes.
Is everybody posted or just one per
Oh,
group?
yeah, good question. Just one person per group posted. Yep. Just one person per group posted, but put everyone's name on it. Put everyone's name on it. So just one person per group, but put everyone's name on it. So any other questions? Comments, critiques? All right, y'all are free to go. Thanks for hanging in there. We will be on Zoom Wednesday, so I will see you on Zoom. I will not be in this classroom on Wednesday, so do not show up to this classroom. So thank y'all. Good to meet y'all. Looking forward to this semester.